Hello, Eagles Nation. Vincent Foast here, and welcome to a Week 2 Eagles chat, where it's so nice to see a guy who is now on a choke collar react the way he did yesterday, especially even stated in one of Taylor Swift's songs, "Please don't be in love with someone else." Well, Taylor, I have to break it to you. Travis Kelce and the Chiefs are currently in love with losing, so all future love must be put on hold by this time. Brought to you by the Philadelphia Eagles. But before we get into it, make sure you like and subscribe to the Eagles Chat YouTube channel, as well as following us on Instagram at Chat Eagles, where you can find daily updates on your birds. You can also find our Instagram in the description of this Eagles Chat video. But now let's get right into it. And yes, we're going to first start off with the injury update. Now, we have two big-time players on this injury update for this week. And the first one, well, we're going to get right into it, and that is Jordan Davis. Now, the news with Jordan Davis, of course, with the defensive tackle for the Birds, is he went down in the fourth quarter on a run play by the Chiefs. And right now, what the Eagles are currently looking at with Davis is they're currently looking at his hamstring. Now, when he was taken off the field, he was looking like he was getting his hamstring massaged on the sideline. Now, it's nothing to be extremely worried of as of right now. Of course, that's all the information that we have had. Now, nothing really stated as a severe injury. Now, of course, we're going to continue to monitor this as the week goes on. And as the Eagles practice, of course, more news will come out. Make sure to follow us on our Instagram for those Eagles injury reports. We'll post them on our Instagram story throughout the week. So just something to watch there, of course, as Jordan Davis was a big contributor on the defensive line, especially in this past Eagles victory. But the next one that we have up here as well is wide receiver DeVonta Smith. Now, of course, again, no specific type of main injury was said to have happened yesterday with DeVonta Smith, but of course, that one play where Smith hit the ground extremely hard, it looked like at that moment that he had the wind knocked out of him. Now, of course, when he hit the ground hard, it looked like he was kind of grabbing his right hip, and as well, some people were saying about his tailbone. So that is something that we'll be currently looking at, as well as that was a potential injury possibility. We'll continue to monitor that as well as the rest of the week continues. But on that play, it was kind of hard because the Eagles, on that play that DeVonta Smith had that hard fall, they were kicking a field goal afterwards. Now, DeVonta Smith did indeed go into the blue tent, but he was able to come out of the blue tent and he returned with the team to finish out the game. So that was definitely a good sign that he returned immediately with the wide receivers. So hopefully nothing bad came out of that. Again, we'll continue to monitor it as the rest of the week continues. Make sure to follow us on our Instagram, again, in the description of this video, to stay updated with that entire situation. But now, let's get into the nitty-gritty of this Eagles chat. And of course, the rematch victory for the Birds, as yes, the Eagles, you already know, have beaten the Chiefs 3 straight times, of course, and it's the first time since 2014 that the Chiefs have started 0-2. So definitely great to see. And of course, the first time in the Mahomes era that they've kind of had a season to start this badly in general. So great sights to see, of course, not just Eagles fans enjoying it, but I know the rest of the NFL is certainly enjoying it right now. The fans, that is, not the people in charge. Let's just put it that way. But let's get into our defensive player of the game. And of course, I have up here a rookie who has been proving himself in a big way ever since he was brought onto the team. Of course, ever since he was drafted, through the training camp, through preseason, and of course through week 1 and now into week 2. Yes, it is Andrew Mukuba, 100%. A great game that he had. Of course, he finished with 6 tackles. He had half a sack, 1 tackle for a loss, and a QB hit. So Mukuba all over the place. And of course, yes, folks, I'm not going to forget it. The beautiful interception that Mukuba had as well. Looked like he had a chance to return it to the house. Unfortunately, the Chiefs were able to catch up with him, but still a great pick. Now, I know that type of situation on that throw. Of course, this was a throw targeted to Travis Kelce on a crossing route. Kelce could not bring it in. Now, yesterday, a lot of people, I'm sure, when they were looking at that, and I said the same thing, that ball should have been caught 100% by Travis Kelce. But something that I noticed a lot from the Chiefs yesterday, especially in the beginning of the game, and actually, you know what, I can just say for the entire game, was the Chiefs' timing looked a little off, and their pass game especially looked off. Now, I understand the Chiefs are missing their top 2 wide receivers. Of course, they were missing Rashee Rice with a suspension. And of course, Xavier Worthy as well with an injury. So that didn't necessarily help the Chiefs' case. But still, Mukuba was able to have a great game. And still, that throw with Travis Kelce, the timing looked off. By the time Travis Kelce looked back at Mahomes, the throw was kind of already there. Didn't necessarily look like it was timed up, and the communication was great on the Chiefs' end. And of course, Andrew Mukuba and Reed Blankenship were in the general area. Of course, Mukuba, the one coming up with the ball, and was able to run it back. big time defensive turnover right there by the Chiefs. That definitely altered the game in the big way for the Eagles, of course, as if the Chiefs were able to score that touchdown, who knows how the ending would have been. So this is all situations that you have to look out. Every little thing counts, of course, not just that interception was a big game decider, but still, that was definitely a key point in the game, because if the Chiefs were going to score there, and they very much were looking like they were, who knows what the end of the game would have been? Who knows what the final result could have been? So definitely a huge play right there from Mukuba. Got to highlight it. The kid's been all over the place, and he's been playing absolutely incredible in that safety position. And just, hey, great to see him starting, great to see him getting that great experience and making great plays for the Birds. Glad to see it. But now, of course, moving on to the rest of the defense, and a guy that I definitely in no way can ignore, and that is right here, Mr. Quinyon Mitchell. Now, of course, yesterday he only allowed 2 catches, only allowed 24 yards. He didn't allow a single touchdown, and he also had 1 pass breakup. Now, there's something that I do want to address, and something that I know some people were criticizing Quinyon Mitchell on yesterday, and that was, of course, the long passing touchdown that the Kansas City Chiefs had. Now, in that entire situation, of course, I had Chiefs fans contacting me. I also had some Dallas fans where I don't know why they're even talking. They barely beat the Giants this weekend, so they really, their mouths should be glued shut, and they should just be damn happy that they got that victory. But knowing Dallas fans, they run their mouth. So I was contacted by some Dallas fans about Quinyon Mitchell. And the fact is, if you really look at that play and that long touchdown by the Kansas City Chiefs, you'll notice one thing. That guy that Quinyon Mitchell was on, and of course the touchdown did indeed happen. It was a great throw by Mahomes. I have to give him credit there. But that guy that Quinyon Mitchell was on was not his guy. For some reason, the Eagles safeties kind of cut up. They pulled up, and next thing you know, you have a guy running free. Quinyon Mitchell had to practically run across the field to cover this guy. And yes, obviously the touchdown he let up, but he was, surprisingly, was able to be on the guy somewhat by the time the throw got there. And that, again, was not Quinyon Mitchell's guy. So for the people out there saying Quinyon Mitchell was the person that gave that up, and I don't know why you're talking so positively about him. He gave up a touchdown. Well, either one, you didn't watch the game, or 2, you don't know the sport. And for a lot of people, and I know there's a lot of fans out there that just talk without even looking at a play sheet or looking at the highlights or whatever you want to call it, the replay. This was something where Quinyon Mitchell had to practically run across the field. That was the safety's job to handle. And for whatever reason, and it wasn't the only time it happened yesterday, where a Chiefs wide receiver got way open, way behind the play, way in the backfield, or excuse me, not in the backfield, way in the secondary. That was not the only time that happened yesterday. It was not the only time 100%. But people blaming Quinyon Mitchell for that are just straight up either didn't watch the game, didn't watch the replay, or didn't pay any attention, and are just ready to go on one of the best cornerbacks in the league. So that's probably what it is. People just trying to rush to criticize a guy who, let's just say, probably crushes their hopes and teams when their team goes up against the Eagles. That's all I can really think about, right? But, of course, not only Quinyon Mitchell am I going to highlight, but I definitely have to highlight the pressure that the Eagles got on Patrick Mahomes yesterday. Now, this is something where there were good and there was also bad in the Eagles' pressure yesterday. Now, don't get me wrong. There were times where they did get to Mahomes. Of course, Moro Ojomo was able to get a sack on Mahomes yesterday. Great to see him performing well. And we saw some good pressure from Jalen Carter. Of course, Jordan Davis, have to mention him again. But they did allow Mahomes to run for 66 yards. And also, of course, Mahomes got a rushing touchdown. So this is something where, with the pressure yesterday, again, there were good and there were bad. Now, of course, I want to mention something, and of course, I want to highlight Nolan Smith for this. And I don't want to act like I'm talking completely bad on the guy, but there were many times yesterday where the edge was kind of going down too deep. And this is something where I saw a couple of times from Nolan Smith where, especially going up against a rushing quarterback. Mahomes can run. He's been mobile his entire career. And this is something where, when I saw some of the plays that Nolan Smith made yesterday, he was going too deep. And especially your job and against a mobile quarterback is to really not just to hold the edge, but you don't want to go too deep, because if Mahomes has the opportunity, or if there's even a little slot there, he's going to take off. And this is something that, again, it just makes sense. The Chiefs were down 2 of their top wide receivers, and the Chiefs were only allowed 89 yards passing total from that game yesterday. So this is something where you have to understand, not just do they not have their two best wide receivers, but they don't have a situation, or two of their, two of their greatest wide receivers, I should say. But you have to understand, of course, Mahomes is going to run. So a couple times, again, Nolan Smith, I saw yesterday, kind of going too deep. And by the time he was around the edge and trying to get to Mahomes, Mahomes was already gone. He was already off. And he kind of tortured the Eagles a couple of times with that yesterday as well. So that was something where, yes, there were good times where the Eagles got pressure on Mahomes. Don't get me wrong. There were plenty of good times that they were able to get to him. But there were also times where Nolan Smith just went a little bit too deep, and it kind of gave Mahomes a free run right there. And of course, the Vic Fangio coming into this game was to prevent Mahomes from being comfortable in the pocket, something similar to what they did, of course, this past Super Bowl, where that was pretty much the identity of this Eagles defense. Didn't give him any time, was pressuring him, sacking him, pressuring him into interceptions. So you knew that was the game plan the Eagles were going to come in here with, especially, again, against a mobile quarterback. This is just things that you do. And especially with how they blitzed Mahomes. The Eagles blitzed a lot more than they usually do, especially knowing Vic Fangio. So this was also a little bit of a different change. And they also played more zone than man coverage, specifically in the second half. So that was something also that needed to be brought up. So yes, they were able to get good pressure on him. I think it was a better game shown by the Eagles defense, better game, especially for pressure. Again, that Dallas game didn't necessarily give them too much justice. They had some pressure in that Dallas game, but overall, right here was a lot better of a showing for the Eagles. And even though they did have their breakdowns, don't get me wrong, there were breakdowns. I'm not going to, try to hide it. There were. They still were able to come up with a good game plan and were able to step up when it mattered most to get the big play. And of course, hey, that's what led them to this victory. It wasn't a huge victory, it wasn't a blowout victory, but to be able to come in to Arrowhead Stadium to a Chiefs team who went 0-1 for their first time since 2014, you knew they were going to come in here gritty, ready to go, and now you just handed them their second loss of the season, which is also their first time since 2014 going 0-2, like I said and mentioned at the beginning of this Eagles chat. So hey, good things all around from the Birds. Glad to see them get their second win in a row, and glad to see the Chiefs get their second loss in a row. All is a win, right? But now moving on to, yes, Jalen Hurts' play. So overall, this is something where I know a lot of people, a lot of haters especially, have come out and have been talking to me, especially all morning, and especially when I went into my radio station this morning. Yes, there were a lot of people that greeted me with something I expected to hear, and that was, well, yes, kind of sad, right? With all the weapons, only 101 passing yards. That's kind of disgraceful. Well, yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm kind of immune to it. But yeah, was kind of expecting the haters to come out, especially only seeing Hurts Scott 101 passing yards. But again, the offense was able to make plays when needed, as Hurts did finish 15 for 25 and had 68.2% for his completion percentage, of course, only for 101 yards. And even though he did not have a passing touchdown for the second straight week, he was still able to get the ball to A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, something we didn't see a lot of last week, especially with A.J. Brown, as he only got targeted once and only had one reception for 8 yards last week. So definitely was a better change. We'll get into the receiver stats in a little bit, but still, Jalen Hurts was able to step up when necessary. Would I have liked to see the passing game step up a little better, especially with some accuracy of some throws? Don't get me wrong. Yes, I would have. It wasn't really a great passing showing from Hurts, but hey, this is something where he was still able to win. Would I rather have a QB that makes it look pretty and fails at the time when needed? Or would I rather have a QB that says, hey, okay, it can be rough at times, but hey, I can say one thing, we'll get you the W at the end of the day. I'd rather go with a scruffy look and a W than a pretty look and an L at the end of the day. That's just something I'm going to put out there, and something that, hey, I'm very blessed to have in terms of having a QB1 like this. 100% for sure. Haters going to hate. I don't give a flying fig, okay? But moving on from Jalen Hurts, of course, we're going to go into the rest of the offense. And this is something where, of course, I have to talk about this. And this is something where a lot of Eagles fans, let's just say, are somewhat concerned. And of course, this guy right here didn't give the Eagles offense much justice yesterday in confidence of play calling. And that is, of course, Kevin Patullo, the Eagles offensive coordinator here for the 2025 season. And my overall reaction on how he handled things yesterday, Kevin Patullo, let's just say, yeah, wasn't really feeling it. Now, of course, there's a lot of people that are in complete panic mode saying, all right, well, is this Brian Johnson part 2 again? I heard that. I've been hearing that all yesterday. Of course, people putting out the memes, right, of Kevin Patullo's face slowly turning into Brian Johnson's face. So don't get me wrong. I understand what you're scared of. Trust me, I have some nerves in me that are kind of floating in that direction as well. But again, it's week 2. I don't want to necessarily go fully down that path yet. But is there room for concern? Yes, there absolutely is. Now, of course, with the whole passing situation, yeah, it's kind of something where a lot of that is not right in front of the fans' face. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You don't know necessarily if it's either Jalen Hurts and Petula are not on the same page or the communication's not just right yet. Of course, people tend to forget, even though, yes, this is a professional team, to get an offensive coordinator and a QB on the same page for the first season usually is a little rough. I mean, look at it last year with Kellen Moore. The Eagles didn't necessarily start the season that great. Matter of fact, they went into the bye week 2-2. So a lot of people weren't that happy going into the bye week last year. Of course, the Eagles had the week 5 bye week last year. So this is something where I think Eagles fans, it's week 2. I think you have to relax. I wouldn't go in full panic mode just yet. Again, he's a new offensive coordinator. And remember, Jalen Hurts, something that I don't like at all, didn't play in the preseason, didn't play a single snap in the preseason. So this is something where, again, on this type of situation, he's a new offensive coordinator. You got to give it time for these guys to get on the same page. Now, don't get me wrong. I didn't necessarily like what I saw either, especially from these first 2 weeks. Don't get me wrong, okay? But this is that situation where you kind of have to step back and look and say, okay, it's the first year right here. We went, 2-2 into the week 5 bye week last year with Kellen Moore, right? This is that situation where it's a new coordinator. You have to give it some time. You can't be jumping on it immediately saying, all right, this guy's a mess. He's a disgrace. Fire him. No, you can't do that, because next thing you know, you don't give it time. Once they finally get on the same page, and you're looking back and saying, "Oh, no, I should have actually been a little more lenient." Yeah, give it some time. Now, if it starts to get into week 8 or whatnot, and things are not changing at all, then I'd say, yeah, it goes a little bit in the panic mode. But as of right now, in week 2, I'd say cool it, let it go, and we'll see how things develop. Of course, yes, the short passing game, the quick passing game wasn't necessarily the greatest. The play calls on 3rd and long yesterday, I didn't necessarily agree with them either, as especially on a 3rd and long situation. You got to make sure your wide receiver is over that first down marker. There were many times yesterday it was a 3rd and long situation. Tried throwing it to A.J. Brown. He was about 3 yards short of that first down marker. So didn't necessarily understand some of the logic used yesterday. But again, give it time. I'm not saying go in the full panic mode just yet. Let's see how things develop in these upcoming weeks. Of course, again, he's brand new. Give it time, folks. Don't jump on it right away, please. But now, of course, moving into the rest of the offense, guys, I got to highlight, you already know right here, the wide receiver duo was back in action once again, of course, with DeVonta Smith and A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown having 5 receptions for 27 yards, of course. Great to see him back on the board again. Of course, DeVonta Smith as well, 4 receptions for 53 yards. So great to see these guys performing at a good level once again. Still not a lot, and still no passing touchdowns, but it's still great to see these guys, the top wide receiver duo in the NFC East, back at it once again. Yes, I just called them that, and they absolutely deserve to have that title. So mark that. But, of course, can't forget this guy as well. The run game for the Eagles was definitely on par yesterday. Of course, Saquon Barkley, 22 attempts, carried for 88 yards, and of course he had 1 rushing touchdown. Of course, Jalen Hurts also had a rushing touchdown as well on the tush push with his 9 attempts for 15 yards. A.J. Dillon got in there with 3 attempts for 19 yards as well. So the running game, once again, the main piece of offense for this week, and we'll just see how it continues down the road. Saquon Barkley was stopped at times. The Chiefs really dwelled in on him, but other times they just had no other choice. They couldn't stop him. So great to see Saquon Barkley performing at a very high level once again against the Kansas City Chiefs to get another victory, and Saquon Barkley's 2nd straight victory over Kansas City. Great to see, and I love saying it. But that's going to do it for this Week 2 Eagles chat. And yes, folks, I can't believe it. Week 1, Week 2, it's in the past. What the heck's going on? Of course, Week 3 coming up. Eagles versus the LA Rams. The Rams, yes, they come to Philadelphia once again. No snow this time, and if we get snow in September, I think we have other problems to start worrying about. Of course, at Lincoln Financial Field in South Philadelphia, Sunday, September 21st at, yes, folks, 1 o'clock p.m. This is a start of a little bit of a series of Eagles games at 1 o'clock p.m. before they go up against the Giants for a late game. So Let's enjoy these 1 o'clock games while we still can. Of course, you'll be able to watch the game and you don't have to go to bed right after, and you don't have to go to work as soon as the Eagles game is over as well. So great to have some 1 o'clock games in there, especially as knowing as many primetime games as the Birds have this year. Let's enjoy them while we have them. 1 o'clock Sunday, September 21st. Eagles, Rams in South Philadelphia at Lincoln Financial Field. Have a good one, folks, and enjoy this beautiful victory over the rematch of the Kansas City Chiefs. 3 straight wins over the Chiefs. Love to see it. Love to see the Swifties in horror. It's just a great thing to be an Eagles fan right now. Hopefully they continue it. Hopefully they can get W number 3 next week. Have a good one, folks. And as always, go Birds! See you next week for the Week 3 Eagles chat. Have a good one.